Tighten up.
Yep.
I'm Dave Palumbo, founder of Species Nutrition. From my earliest bodybuilding days, I believed in only putting the best in my body. And that lives on in the Species Nutrition line of products. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our third year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching a tasty pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Whatever's on your mind, bodybuilding or non-bodybuilding, diet-related, training-related, IFBB pros-related. We are in the thick of the contest calendar. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. So glad you can join us. Right now at speciesnutrition.com, we have a sale. Obviously, big show this upcoming week with the Tampa Pro, so we figured why not commemorate that with a sale at speciesnutrition.com. So between today, from the time that this episode drops, to tomorrow night, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 25% off the entire website using promo code TAMPA25. If you spend $30 or more, you get a free Amino Evolve Blue Raspberry flavor only while supplies last. Again, Tampa 25 for 25% off at speciesnutrition.com. So we're now bringing Dave Palumbo. So Dave, we have that sale on the website right now, but earlier today, and we're going to drop a teaser clip later tonight on the channel, you had an exclusive interview with Boston Lloyd's mother, and she shared many, some funny, some touching recollections of Boston, his life, getting into bodybuilding, his life as a bodybuilder, some of the celebrities that helped train him. A very, very thorough and touching episode with Boston Lloyd's mother.
Yeah, was something that her and I have been planning for several weeks now. She's been sending me a lot of like pictures and images and stories about Boston, and we went back and forth, and I wanted to make sure that she felt comfortable doing it. She absolutely wanted to do it. And I kind of got caught by surprise because I got overwhelmed a little bit emotionally, and at one point I had to actually catch myself because I thought I was going to start crying. It was funny, but it was very sad and tragic at the same time, because this was a kid who was so talented and so smart growing up, but had such a defiance disorder where he just had to do the opposite of what anyone ever told him to do. And it was tragically, it led to his premature death. And it was nothing that could have been avoided. I mean, you'll hear the stories. I mean, it's amazing how compassionate this guy was, and how loving he was, and how talented he was. And what a terrible, terrible story to lose someone like Boston so young. But I think people will come away from the interview with a really, really colorful picture of who Boston really was. It's not just the guy online who talked about drugs and was brutally honest and made fun of people. You're going to get a really, really good take on him all the way from his childhood. I mean, the kid was posing down at 4 years old, and he grew up in Gold's Gym. I mean, his parents owned, I think, 2 Gold's Gyms. So it doesn't surprise me that he became a bodybuilder. But it was a good interview, and I'm happy we did it. And I think, once again, for people who really loved Boston and who were big fans, I think you're going to really enjoy it. As far as the Species Nutrition sale goes, please, guys, don't forget to add it to the cart. So if you have pop-ups blocked on your browser, make sure you disable that or enable them, I should say, so that you can add the Amino Evolve to the cart. If you don't add it to the cart, you're not going to get it for free. It's a very limited supply. They're going to probably go like that. So if you spend $30 or more, use the coupon code also, Tampa25 for 25% off the rest of the entire website. And you'll get that free Amino Evolve. So that's going to be for the next 2 days. So don't miss that. I like to give you guys some special sales when we do these big shows. Tampa's a big weekend. and we should have some great action going on down there.
Let's get to the questions. Of course, the first two questions on this show from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. First question, if I ask you what your best Lee Priest story is, what comes to mind first?
Oh my God. You know what? I know Lee too well, so I don't even I can't even come up with the best Lee Priest story. I'll tell you a funny story when, just to show Lee is another defiant guy. He doesn't like to be told what to do. When Lee was working for muscular development and I had started RxMuscle, and it was only maybe about 1 or 2 years into RxMuscle, and obviously there was a battle between RxMuscle and muscular development because John Romano and I used to run that, and then we were over here with our own thing. Lee was under contract with muscular development, and he wasn't allowed to do interviews with anyone else. And don't tell Lee he can't do something, because then he'll do it. And Lee did an interview with us, and it was so popular, got so many hits on our website. And Bleckman was so mad that, that right there is probably what really solidified my friendship with Lee, because Lee was like, you know what, I'm friends with you. I'm going to do this interview. I don't care. This is who I am. You're not going to tell me that I can't interview with my friend. And so a lot of people don't realize that Lee is very loyal to his friends, and almost to the point of, well, he'll cut his nose to spite his face, because no one's going to tell him that he can't be friends with someone or that he can't do something that he wants to do. And that to me really told me that this is a guy who's got you back and who's loyal, and that's why I've been friends with him since then.
Second question, again from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. I'm currently finishing up on your low carb diet. I want to start increasing size now. Do I jump straight into the listed mass diet? People always ask me, is there a transition diet? And all these two questions come from the Dave Palumbo Experience app, and that's the app you can download on your iTunes store if you have an Apple, or on your Android store. It's $29 a month. You get me basically as your trainer, or as your guru, whatever you want to call it, as your coach. All my writings are on there that I've ever done. All my videos are on there that I've ever done. It's categorized. We put up a workout every week. I answer everyone's questions in an open forum, so everyone gets to see everyone's questions and answers. I take the best questions and I do a Q&A video that goes exclusively for the app members. It's nothing that anyone else can see. Only the app members can see that. It's a great resource to have at your fingertips. It's like I said, having me as a coach in your back pocket. So these two questions we always start Ask Dave with come from that app. Now, the question is, when you come off a diet, should you go right to an off-season diet situation? A lot of times guys can't eat that much food because their stomach is this big after contest dieting. So what a lot of times I'll do is I'll take the contest diet and I'll add carbs to it, more carbs to it for the first 2 weeks. And I know and I always tell people, look, I know you're going to cheat. You want to cheat. You just got off a contest diet. Have a cheat meal once a day. Try to stick to a clean diet the rest of the day so you don't go crazy and nuts. And then after about 2 weeks, then I'll transition them usually to the off-season diet. Some guys are so hungry, they're like, just tell me what to eat. I'll eat anything. And I'll give them an off-season diet, which is, we have on the app, my off-season diet with pre- and post-workout shakes. And a lot of people can transition right to that. But some people, they get stomach aches because they can't handle that much volume of food. So if you're a guy who needs to transition a little bit, then you start lighter. Start with your contest diet, add more food to it. After you can kind of adjust, your stomach stretches out after a couple of weeks, then you can go to a more high density, higher food diet. Let's go to the Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us, our handle is official_RxMuscle. If you're watching us for the first time on YouTube, welcome. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our shows or segments. There's a question about Lee Priest. Lee Priest Iron Rage dropping tomorrow on the channel right now. All new episodes of the Heavy Muscle Radio Show. And then, of course, last night's hilarious episode of the After Hours podcast. Jimmy the Bull going absolutely, whatever you want to call it, but he went off talking about the moon landing.
Sid, I couldn't get a word in last night. I thought my microphone, I kept saying, Tyler, is this microphone working?
Just not listening to you.
Yeah. They weren't even listening. They were so entrenched in arguing with themselves, and I couldn't get a word in. That's how crazy it was.
No, it was absolutely hilarious. Conversation was started about Jerry Ward, and for those that knew Jerry Ward, they knew that he was a very staunch Freemason. So then Jimmy started giving his theories about Freemasonry, and then that eventually led him down a whole pipeline of conspiracy theories. And then he went on to debunking the moon landing.
Again,
it was highly, highly entertaining. Again, that is live right now on the RxMuscle YouTube channel. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. And as always, we appreciate your support all year round. Let's go to Iron Addict. How far out of a contest should this is a two-part question. How far out of a contest should clen be started? Second part is run tests up to contest or drop it a week or two out.
I start clenbuterol sometimes 16, 18 weeks out, depending on how much fat the person has to lose. As far as testosterone goes, I usually stop it if it's a Saturday morning prejudging. I'll stop it on a Wednesday. That's the last shot.
There was also a third part. Your thoughts about CJC 1295?
All right, CJC, 1295 is a member of those GH releasing peptides, that are out there. There's a lot of them. There's hexarelin. There's the MK version, which is the oral version of it. There's GHRP6. They all pretty much do the same thing. They stimulate the pituitary gland to release growth hormone. To what degree, that's different in every person. And I know that's not the answer people want to hear, but it's unquantifiable, meaning that if I take 200 micrograms of CJC 1295, I'm going to produce a certain amount of GH from my pituitary. If Tyler takes the same dosage, he's going to probably produce either less or more, but depending on how his body responds to it. So it's hard to determine, what the results are going to be. Is it comparable to taking growth hormone itself? No. GH is way stronger. But it does offer some effects, and some people respond better than others to it.
Let's go to Nico Cantemir. Another carb-related question. How can you calculate the amount of carbs daily when you're on diet? I saw in your app, multiply 0.75 per pound. Is it the same for all?
Everyone's carb requirements are completely different. If you watch the Guru Talk with Milos Sarcev, I think it's going to air tomorrow, you'll see what we talk about. Because he asked me that same question. How do you... Even he says it. You cannot say this person, we're going to carb everyone on 400 grams of carbs a day the last 2 days, because some people need more, some people need less. It's impossible to know. You got to know. If I work with a client and I'm doing like mini carb ups every weekend the last 6 weeks before the show, I kind of know how their bodies respond to carbs. I'll know how much to give them. If someone comes to me cold and says, hey, can you help me the last week? And I'm gonna go conservative the first day, see how they respond. And then if they're a little flat, I'll feed them more the next day. If they seem to fill up tremendously on what I gave them, then I'm not going to give them more the next day. So it's a trial and error thing. Everyone carbs differently.
Let's go to David Jaworski. Good one here. If you had to choose a diet of fish, you mentioned salmon, tuna, tilapia, or a diet of beef, chicken, and turkey, which would it be pre-contest and off-season?
If I had to pick one or the other off-season, I'd go with the chicken and the beef. Probably pre-contest, I'd probably go with the fish, because I think fish it gives you better insulin sensitivity. You tend to lose weight a little faster on it.
Kylie YG, have you ever thought of making a digestive enzyme to go with FIBERLYZE?
The problem is not everyone needs extra digestive enzymes. So if I put them into the formula, the FIBERLYZE formula, some people might get a little indigestion from it if you don't really need them. So it's one of these products that, believe it or not a lot of people need extra digestive enzymes. I mean, if you had anything done kind of to your stomach, like a stomach stapling, or you have something wrong with gastric juice production in your stomach, you might need to take some, or your intestines don't, because most of the digestive enzymes work in the intestinal tract anyway. But some do work in the stomach as well. I just don't think a lot of people need them, so it's not worth adding it. It's a product that if you do need it because you have a lack of enzymes, maybe you have a pancreas problem and you're not producing enough pancreatic digestive enzymes, you can add it in a supplemental form, and they're cheap, so it's not like it's not like I can't add them. It's just I think it's something that maybe some people wouldn't need, and so I'm not going to add it into the formula.
Question about after hours. Charlie Arms. When will we see Charlie Arms making an appearance on After Hours?
I dropped the ball on the Charlie Arms interview because I told him a couple weeks ago I wanted to interview him, and then he said, yeah, just contact me. And I've been just so busy with my leg, and I got distracted. So I'm going to get him. I would love to have him on after hours. I think it would be too distracting because I don't think these other guys can keep their mouths shut that long. So, and Charlie's one of these guys you have to let him just talk. The stories that'll come out of his mouth will be priceless, I promise you. But if there's too many people talking, it could be distracting for him. It would be like having my dad on. Only my dad can talk if he would have been on the show back in the day. So that's I'll have him on the next couple of weeks. The ideal situation would be to go to his house. I just don't know if I'm going to have time to do that. So I'll have to try to rig up I might send Mr. G over to his place. So Mr. G goes surfing in Jupiter where he lives, and if he can be over there while I'm on the computer while he's on the computer with Charlie, it'll make it a little easier. So we'll see.
Lag no excuses. How to improve bone density?
The best way to increase bone density is work out with weights, because when you build muscle, remember, what does muscle do? Muscle are connected to bones. And when the muscles contract, they're contracting against the bone. They're basically telling the bone, you better be strong enough to hold us. And as the muscle gets bigger, the bone has to get denser to be able to hold, the muscle from contracting against it. So working out with weights actually builds bone density better than anything else you could possibly. I mean, you could take calcium, you could take some of these drugs that they have out there to increase bone density, take testosterone, which increases bone density. But at the end of the day, you got to work out with weights, weight training, not cardio, weight training, resistance training builds density.
Let's go to Ivan Banyanats. How to approach peak week with carbs and water if somebody has to make weight 3 days before the show?
3 days before the show is easy because you're usually probably still depleting at that point. So I would just probably, if it's close and they have to, really, they're having trouble making weight, I would deplete them down, get them the way in, and then carb them. Start as soon as they make weight, start carbing them up for that show. So that's easy. It's when you have to make weight the day before the show. That's tougher because now what do? In that situation, I usually carb people the day before, even though it sounds like not logical because, you're going to gain weight. How are you going to make weight? I carb them the day before so there's glycogen in the muscles. Then I dehydrate them, let them make weight. Then I'll rehydrate and continue carbing them. And even if they don't fully carb up after that, or even if they're not carbing very much after that because they were dehydrated, it doesn't matter because I've already jammed a whole day's worth of carbs into their body. So that's how I do it. And it seems to work pretty well.
Let's go to Akshay Pandey. Do you know, it's a question that we've been getting a lot, not just obviously on the show, but even in our First Species Nutrition about FIBERLYZE and general creatine. Do you have any idea, any forecast as far as when the price of creatine may go back down?
If I only knew. I told you I haven't produced FIBERLYZE because it's just too expensive, and I just don't feel right, having to jack the price up 5 times what I charged prior to it. So there are companies that are doing it and selling it. I just don't see it. So I think the prices will eventually come down. I think that it goes. What's going to happen is there's going to be people going to go back to work where they make the creatine and they're going to have too much of it, and then they're not going to know what to do with it because no one's buying it, and they're going to have to drop the prices. It's supply and demand. When people want it, and it's low demand, when it's in low supply but high demand, then the prices go up. When the supply goes up and the prices or the demand is down, you're going to have cheaper prices because people now they have to unload it. What are we going to do with all this creatine we got? No one's buying it. We better make the prices lower so people start buying it. Once that happens, everyone will start buying it again and we'll start selling it.
Let's go to Bitcoin Will. Are HGH pharma pens such as norditropin more effective than generic vials you mix yourself? How much is a safe dose to taper up to? Start at 1 IU a day with no negative side effects.
Any real GH is great because GH is calculated in milligrams, and 1 milligram of GH is 3 IUs or 3 international units. That's standard. If I have 1 milligram of GH that's made by, Pfizer, or if I have 1 milligram of GH that's made by some Chinese company, in their back room, if it's legitimately dosed properly, and I'm really getting a milligram of GH from both, they should be equivalent. The problem is that the pharmaceutical stuff is usually better than the generic stuff because the generic stuff is not dosed properly. Having said that, there is pharmacy or pharmacy packed GH out there that's fake too. A lot of it. And I was shocked because I'm like, no one's going to go through the trouble of putting these little pens together in these little foil packs. Bullshit. They're doing it, and they're selling fake GH. And how do I know this? Because I sell a lot of growth hormone testing kits at DavePalumbo.com. The somatropin testing kits are like one of our most popular sellers, and you know what? 50% of them come back fake because people send me the results. You sure this is fake? Because if it's 2 lines, even if they're very faint lines, it's like a pregnancy test. Even 2 faint lines indicate that it's fake. If there's 1 line, it's legit. And I see tons of fakes from generics to pharmacy, supposedly stuff that came right out of the pharmacy, which it didn't, obviously. So you got to check everything. Don't trust anything. It sucks. I helped someone who's getting ready for a show, and we get down to the last couple of weeks, and I'm like, you look really natural, and I hate to say that to people. They're lean, but they just don't look like they're on a cycle. And sure enough, they didn't test their stuff, and then they were using fake stuff. They got on real stuff, and boom, their bodies changed like in 2 weeks. So test your gear.
Take this one from Rob Scaff. Now, I'm not sure exactly where he's going with this, but we have a lot of pros that message us, and they have questions about, the direction of the contest in general. And I know we've been trying to get this iron debate together because this is a topic that's been going on now for, it's been discussed now for the last few weeks. And as far as, not just the juice behind contest season, but the direction of contest in general. So his specific angle is about the business model, about sanctioned events and individual promoters, and whether or not their quote unquote agendas run relevant to, I guess, growing the sport, or if those goals are conducive to growing the sport. So, Dave, I know this is a very big ball of wax, and it's one that we have discussed on various platforms before. But, I mean, how do you draw that line? If you could give somewhat of a summation between, obviously, promoters trying to put on a show that's going to make money, is going to keep that show running, keep that platform running for the athletes, and then I guess where, we've been seeing somewhat of a dwindling down as far as some of the lineup sizes.
Yeah. A lot of, from what we've discussed on Heavy Muscle Radio, at least John Romano and Chris Aceto are under the assumption that a lot of the reason why the lineups are weak is because there's no prize money to be won. And it's very expensive to get to these shows. You got to fly yourself there. You got to put yourself in a hotel, feed yourself, and then you wind up losing money because there's not enough prize money to win. And they might be right. So as a promoter, you want to try to maximize the amount of money you're making, right? So you don't want to give out as little prize money as possible for a lot of these guys, because they're like, if I give out too much, then I'm going to make less in my pocket. It's like if I give the guys an extra $5,000, then that's $5,000 less than I'm going to make profit-wise. I mean, that's how I think these promoters see it. I don't blame them. I don't want to. If I'm a promoter, I don't want to lose money on a show. But at the same time, if you can't figure out a business model where you're going to make enough in pay-per-view sales, ticket sales, maybe amateur entry forms if you have an amateur show associated with it, and sponsors, then you can't really put on the show. If you're going to have a men's open, you got to give away a good amount of prize money if you want to attract a good lineup. And if you're trying to cheap out and not give away too much so you can put more in your pocket, ultimately everyone loses. So what's the solution? Well, the solution could be that the organization mandates that you give away a certain amount of prize money, and that will basically get rid of all the promoters who are trying to just make too much of a profit and don't want to take a chance or a risk on losing money. And it'll get the better promoters in there who know they can bring in a lot of cash and justify, holding a men's event. I mean, that's the only answer to the problem. It's got to come from the organization, because these promoters will not give away more prize money unless they're mandated to as part of the, requirements by the sanction. If I give you a men's open sanction, you got to give away $50,000 or whatever it is. I'm just giving you a for instance,
It's prize money obviously is one of the biggest talking points, but we had pros messaging saying that there were certain shows they didn't even know that was on the calendar.
Yeah. Well, that's the pros' fault, because they do have, they put the schedule out. The schedule's out there, so I mean they got to look.
There were also discussions about lodging, accommodation, and areas where some of the expenses could be different. Again, this is a very expansive topic, and it is one where we do want to have a proper. We haven't had the show yet, only because we don't want to just, all right, whoever, we want to make sure we have some of the right voices on this panel, because it's a very important topic. And what we're talking about, not just, from a pro's perspective, but really from the fans' perspective as well.
Watch Tony Doherty. Ask Tony Doherty what he does. He's a great example of how to be a great promoter. He used to fly in these guys to Australia. And let me tell you something. Those flights are expensive. He'd put them up in a hotel. He'd feed them. He had his own little food service. He had a million. You get off the plane, you got chicken breast and potatoes, whatever you need, he has available to. He drives you anywhere you need around there. And, he didn't have 50 people in the lineup. He would have 10 great guys. He would go to the U.S. and get these guys at the Arnold Classic or wherever he would get them and say, look, you want to be in the show? I'm going to fly you in. I'm going to put you in a hotel, pick you up. You don't have to worry about anything. And that's how he did it. And he gave away a decent amount of prize money. And for, back in the day, that was before he had the Arnold Australia. It was just the Australian Grand Prix. He did it for years like that. And he made money because he was a great promoter. And the athletes came first. And the athletes actually loved going out to Australia. And let me tell you something. When you're dieting, no one wants to sit on an airplane for 24 hours. But he would make it so that not only did you have a good experience, but you also sold a lot of stuff too, because he would have the expo there. You'd sit and sell pictures, and he would, any way he can get these athletes to make a few bucks while they were there. And so that's why the athletes loved going there. Kai Green went there, Vince Taylor, and Lee was always out there. Obviously, even when he wasn't living there, he would go out there and compete. Cormier was a fixture there. So there's a reason why, because he was a great promoter. And more promoters should take a lesson plan out of him. If I'm holding a show, I'm going to get the 10 best guys that I want in my show, and I'm going to fly them out there. I'm going to put them in a hotel, because as a promoter, I'm going to get free hotel rooms, because I'm going to rent out the whole hotel with all my competitors. I'm going to use all my little, freebies I got. If I got a food sponsor, they're going to feed these guys. And that's what you do as a promoter. And then people are going to tell their friends, hey, this guy ran a really good show. I want to go back there next year. Yeah, I'm going to do that show next year too, because you know what? That's how I want to be taken care of. I want the red carpet. Yeah, I didn't win, I didn't place, but at least I felt like I was, important out there.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Reminder right now at species-nutrition.com, 25% off the entire website using the promo code TAMPA25. Spend $30 or more, you get a free Amino Evolved Blue Raspberry flavor while supplies last. So by the time you watch this episode, it might already be sold out, but nonetheless, 25% off throughout tomorrow night, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at speciesnutrition.com. For Tyler Shore and Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.